always 28 days in mind when we talk about the menstrual cycle. I quickly want to inform you, it is not strictly 28 days for all females. No, but that is the average that we work on. Okay, so when we look at the menstrual cycle, there are many hormones, 10 to 12 hormones that are involved for all these processes to take place. Usually, there is one egg in a month, and so it is all about timing. All about timing? All about timing if you want to get pregnant, and all about timing if you do not want to get pregnant. Now, okay, right. The uterus must be ready when egg gets there, ovum gets there, in case it was fertilized. If no fertilization takes place, it will tear down and the lining of the uterus will start to rebuild from day one for the next menstrual cycle. And this is my favorite graph. And I think that you do have a type of graph like that on page 442. And this is the book of Appel de Klerk that we are using for those of you who are watching on a video. So on day 1, we know day 1 is the start of menstruation. That means that there was no pregnancy, no implantation during the previous cycle, and the wall of the uterus, which we also call the endometrium, will now start to tear apart, and it will be released through the vagina in the form of blood. Can you see why we cannot say the uterus starts to tear down? You see why I want you to specifically talk about the different parts of the uterus. The uterus is the whole thing, but actually it's the inside. Now, the uterus is the whole thing. There's a lining, then there's muscles, and we refer to muscles of the uterus, lining of the uterus. If you remember, the lining is the endometrium, use that word. Okay, right. So, I want us to start here, and then we will work our way up. So, on day 1, it starts to tear down, and now the uterus that was thickened is now much thinner, and it will start to build up again. Why? Because it is an energy consuming process to keep it thick like that. Right? To keep it thick. So it tears down. No, not to use too much energy. Rather use the energy for the primary follicle. Now if I say follicle, I mean the cells that forms the bag with the ovum inside. And remember, if we say there's an ovum inside, that ovum already was through the process of oogenesis. Now, you remember oogenesis? Where the diploid germinal epithelium cell changed into a haploid cell. Okay. And now it will start to develop, it will grow, and the moment when it is fully developed, we talk about the Graafian follicle. This Graafian follicle will now on day 14 be released into the fallopian tube, and we call that ovulation. If we look at ovulation, we will see that the endometrium now already are build up to a certain point. Now, and I want us now to move up to the involved hormones. So progesterone is very low, but estrogen starts to increase. When? When the Graafian follicle is developed enough, the Graafian follicle cells release estrogen. They spell it normally also with an O, estrogen. So the estrogen needs to build the layer. Now, ovulation, and the estrogen starts to lower a tiny bit, because it still needs to build up, but progesterone increase. Why? Progesterone will maintain the thickness of the wall. And there's no Graafian follicle anymore, but it's now called corpus yellow body, corpus luteum. Okay? Do you remember the yellow spot in the eye was also fovea lutea? That's okay, and or the yellow spot. So the cells remain active in providing now the progesterone. Okay, and we see the levels increase. When we see the levels is going down, decrease, we realize no pregnancy occurred. And it's because of that lower levels, lower levels that it's being teared down. Because what is keeping the uterus lining being built and maintained? Progesterone and estrogen. You see? So if those levels fall, the wall will be broken down. Okay. It must stay high. And what is interesting, I just want to come in here. So for a while, this corpus luteum will provide it. And it will stay high levels. If there's no pregnancy, the corpus luteum start to disintegrate. If there's a pregnancy, the corpus luteum also start to disintegrate. And the placenta that forms, you know now what's placenta. Fortunately, we did it in grade 10. The placenta takes over the role as an endocrine gland. Endocrine gland, a gland that secretes hormones. So then the placenta takes over this role. Okay, and there's a good reason for this. Let's go and look at the hormones for the menstrual cycle. So we do understand now the role of estrogen and progesterone. The role of luteinizing hormone. So I first need a follicle to be stimulated. So the follicle stimulating hormone, easy, follicle stimulating hormone. Stimulate the follicle to grow. The luteinizing hormone reaches its highest point during ovulation. So the luteinizing hormone will be the one that causes ovulation. Luteinizing, corpus luteum, you see? So when luteinizing causes ovulation, the corpus luteum will then be formed. Okay. And then we see it's going much lower. If there's a pregnancy, what do we want the next month to happen? We want the next month a primary follicle must start to form again and become a Graafian follicle. If there was a pregnancy, we do not want another primary follicle, because then there will be another baby, but there's already one that's growing. It does not work like that in humans, because we do not have enough space and energy to have one growing and another one coming, you see? Okay, so what happens is if the progesterone levels, the estrogen level stays high, it will stop the follicle stimulating hormone it will inhibit the follicle stimulating hormone. Do you understand that? So if this stays high, means there's a pregnancy. And the follicle stimulating hormone will then not start to help the formation of another follicle. Does that make sense? Completely, no? Okay, so that is the menstrual cycle. Now it sounds much easier than in grade 10 because you already have your foundation knowledge. You agree? So there I just have then a summary, 3 stages, tear down. Which hormones are high during tear, which are low? Estrogen and progesterone must be low. But which hormone must start to function? FSH. For the follicle to be stimulated. Follicle stimulated hormone. Okay. The FSH also helps the boys or the male. Follicle stimulating hormone is present in male to help for the sperms to get there. Okay? Help for the formation of sperm. And LH for male? LH for male help the testosterone to develop. LH help testosterone to develop. FSH helps the testosterone help the sperms together with FSH. So it's also present in the pituitary gland of the males. Okay, right. Now we have rebuilding to rebuild estrogen to maintain progesterone. But the progesterone not only keep it thickened, it also provides the formation of the blood vessels in this thick wall so that there are extra oxygen and nutrients. It's like forming a perfect cradle. Nah. So that when a fertilized egg, that we call a zygote, becomes an embryo moves down, implants, it is ready to receive it. Okay, right. If there's no baby, we know what happened. We are back to square one. Okay, I think we talked enough about estrogen, progesterone, LH, and FSH. And I think we are ready with this. Ovulation. Now, when are you able to get pregnant? Only when there is an ovum and a sperm. Nay, but here is where we need to take care. How do you know that you are ovulated if you are ovulating? You will have a slightly increase in your basal temperature. A slight increase. 37.5 to 37.8.9. A slight increase. Now, most fertile days in the next few days. So, when do you think, if you want to get pregnant, is a good time to have copulation? Sexual intercourse. On the day of ovulation? Yes, definitely. The day before ovulation? No, take care. The sperm cell can live for 24 hours inside the female body. So, if there was sexual intercourse the day before ovulation, there are still sperm cells present. Nee. So if ovulation happens, there can be a sperm cell ready to fertilize. And fertilization is when the nucleus of the male fuses with the nucleus of the female. You remember that? Okay, good. It's good that we are repeating so many times. Nay, that is how we learn. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Okay? And then you can say, okay, but if ovulation is finished, remember that ovulation has the egg cell, the ovum, stays also for 48 hours. It stays in a way that it can receive a sperm. Nee. So they say there are a window period of about 3 to 4 days. 2 days before ovulation, 2 days after ovulation. That gives us about 4 days. Nee. Where you have a window period where pregnancy can occur. Because if it's a good sperm, let's count rather 48 hours, especially if we do not want to get pregnant. Nee? And then 2 days after ovulation, it's another 48 hours. That gives us 4 days. Okay, that is the days where a pregnancy can take place. And this is what I explained here. Ovum, 12 to 24 hours. Sperm, 4 to 5 days. I just want you to check what your book says. So from day 11 to day 16, in the cycle, the pregnancy is possible. Here, I have a picture, and I printed this picture for you. This picture tells us now different stages of development inside the ovum. Ovary. And here you can clearly see where you have the germinal epithelium, you see the development, and you see the released egg. That zona pellucida, that layer around the ovum, it has the function to make sure that only one sperm can enter, and then it closes off, like a gate that's locked, or a fence that's locked, and none else will enter. That is the function of the zona pellucida. Now, and there we see ovulation. Oh yes, there you see the name for that bubbles that we see around the ovum. They say it's the corona radiata. You don't have to know that name, but you will see it in pictures. And I want us now to look at the video, corona radiata. I want us now to look at a video about the menstrual cycle.
Ovulation and the menstrual cycle. The processes of ovulation and menstruation occur because of the interplay between the pituitary gland, the ovaries, and the uterus. At the start of a typical 28-day menstrual cycle, the hypothalamus secretes gonadotropin-releasing hormone,
not important for you,
into the network of blood vessels which surround the pituitary gland. This stimulates the cells of the pituitary gland to secrete follicle-stimulating hormone,
that is important,
which travels through the bloodstream to reach the ovaries, where it stimulates the development of ovarian follicles. Each of the developing follicles consists of an immature egg, a number of cells which secrete estrogen and fluid. Most of these developing follicles degenerate by day 7, leaving only a single dominant follicle to grow, nourishing the developing egg inside it. FSH helps the egg to mature, in preparation for its release during ovulation, while the estrogen secreted by the developing follicles helps in the regeneration of the endometrial lining of the uterus. Around day 12, it's a surge of estrogen into the bloodstream. Which reach the hypothalamus, resulting in the increased secretion of GnRH and stimulating the production of luteinizing hormone or LH by the pituitary gland.
Sorry, I just want to... did you hear there? FSH increase LH. If FSH is there, it will make sure LH will be secreted. You remember? Just want to take you back. Estrogen, high levels, decrease FSH. Otherwise, you will have an ovum getting ready while there's a pregnancy. You follow that? JP, you understand? Stays high. Stay high. But what is telling the luteinizing hormone? Can you see it's all interlinked? Now, to make sure everything works according to plan. Okay, right.
This flooding of LH into the bloodstream causes the follicle to bulge, acting as a trigger for the rupture of the follicle and ovulation around the middle of the cycle.
Day 40.
After its release, the egg is picked up by suction into the fin-related opening of the outer end of the fallopian tube. From here, it takes about 5 to 6 days to travel through the fallopian tube where fertilization occurs.
Celia?
Before the fertilized egg gets lodged in the wall of the uterine cavity. If fertilization of the egg fails to occur within 12 to 24 hours, the egg begins to disintegrate and is eliminated along with the shedding of the endometrial lining. After the follicle ruptures, it is converted into a structure known as the corpus luteum, which secretes the hormone progesterone. Progesterone creates important changes in the endometrial lining of the uterus, making it suitable for it to receive the fertilized egg. The secretion of progesterone is maintained for several days. But if the fertilization does not occur in this period, the corpus luteum recurs, resulting in a fall in the levels of progesterone and estrogen and a shredding of the uterine lining, starting the menstrual cycle all over again.
Okay, I think this is a very nice video. Do you agree to explain this? Okay, right. I want us now quickly to look at this interlink between all the hormones. In your book, it is important that you study it on page 440. Nee, there it will be explained. But what we say is, due to FSH, we have the follicle that starts to develop. FSH will help and increase the levels of estrogen. Estrogen will, in the blood, will make sure that LH will be secreted, because then the ovum will be released. And the LH will make the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum makes sure that progesterone is secreted. The moment if this level stays high of estrogen and progesterone, FSH will be blocked, will be inhibited. Okay. Do you understand this, class? Why this is important? To prevent another ovum to be released if one is already fertilized. Right. So this is quite a lot of information to remember. So we are going to do the pregnancy then tomorrow. I want you now to start with the questions. Question 3 and question 1, 2, 3 on the other page. Okay.
This station subscribes to the Namibia Media Code of Conduct and is regulated by the Media Ombudsman, appointed to deal with complaints about media content that breach this code. This includes content that is inaccurate, unfair, or that invade privacy. We encourage aggrieved members of the public to submit complaints to the Media Ombudsman via mediaombudsmannamibia.org. The Media Ombudsman is supported by the Editors Forum of Namibia, advocating for ethical and quality journalism.
Let's talk about the coronavirus outbreak here in Africa. How do you get people to regularly wash their hands when water is scarce? How do you get people to work from home when majority of Africans work in the informal sector?
People are dying and suffering.
More importantly, how do you get a vibrant and dynamic continent to stop in its tracks? Welcome to The Breakdown, BBC Africa's COVID-19 special program, helping you make sense of the crisis.
Right, class. So what, grade 12, what I want us to do today is some revision. Please check your answers. Please, I have the questions on here for the sake of the video, and I'm going to say the answers. So listen carefully so that you have the correct answers. Yes. So the first question was, on which day does ovulation takes place? I can see it in the picture. No? I can just read it from the picture. So it is on day 14. Between which days does menstruation takes place? Day 0 and day 7. Please tick your work. Please mark your work. Okay. Can you find your work? State one function of the luteinizing hormone. The luteinizing hormone is responsible for ovulation. Luteinizing, responsible for ovulation, but it's also responsible for the forming of the corpus luteum. That's the two functions of luteinizing hormone. Yes, you may use LH. You may use the word LH. Okay. Not if they ask, name the hormone. If they ask, name the hormone, you cannot write LH. But if they ask you to explain what is the function of the luteinizing, you can use LH. Okay. Or in another